Oh, good morning. Good morning. And there you are. And welcome to Backchannel. It's Thursday. It's May 5. So Star Wars Day was yesterday, and now it's like post-Star Wars Day. Today's like Empire Strikes Back Day. I'm Anthony Davis. This is Backchannel. You are live with us here, the only place you can listen to, watch, and interact with hosts in real time. And this is the Anthony Davis Show, as I say. You can see it down there. And you can catch me Monday through Friday between 9 a.m. Pacific, that's 12 Eastern, and 11 or 2. And you can get involved with the show very easily. Send a message, ask questions, chime in on what we're talking about, or anything else you want to send over. So if you can see me right now, that means you're probably watching on an Echo show or a Fire TV. Well, the magic word there is say, so just wake up your device, say the word say, and then your message. If you're listening on an audio device, like an Echo speaker, and you can't see me and you'd like to message, simply go to backchannel.tv and join the chat there. That's backchannel.tv. We got lots to talk about today. It's kind of a super fun-packed show. The Democrats grasping for a foothold on voter anger over abortion. Their base is starting to recover Trump-era protest energy after the Supreme Court breached Roe's opinion. So channeling that into November won't be easy. We'll be discussing how they've been taking on the fight of women's rights. And on human rights, a draft Supreme Court opinion striking down Roe v. Wade has progressives fearing that conservative majority could use the same reasoning to target LGBTQ+, contraceptive, and other rights. So we'll be digging deep there. And also on climate change, businesses shaping how we talk about climate change, and sometimes this can stop us from paying attention to their actions. So, what is it that big business can do, and are they doing enough, or is it just for us to save the planet? Carrie's dropped in. Hello, Carrie. Welcome from New Jersey. First time on the show. Welcome. Nice to see you. You can click the subscribe button in the bottom left-hand corner if you'd like to. Trinity's in as well, and you can do the same, especially if you have an Echo show, and you can be a VIP by just pressing the subscribe button there. We're going to look through the morning papers. First, I want to say hello to Gliss, who's producing the show. We could welcome Gliss into the show. There we go.
Hey, how's it going?
How are you? Nice to see you. That's a very nice brick. Is that a real brick wall, or is that a wallpaper you're doing?
No, it's a wallpaper. I have a green screen, but I can't figure it out.
It's very convincing. I was convinced that a person, I was going to say a man, but that would have been inappropriate. A person had put each brick upon each brick by hand.
Yeah, it's definitely just a sticker from Home Depot.
Thank you for bursting my bubble. Appreciate it. And the red light is nice. It's like, it's a little bit like Amsterdam in a funny kind of way. You're offering producer services and other services if the light is on, right?
That's right.
Where are you, Gliss?
So I'm just outside of Portland, Oregon. I live in Beaverton. So
that's kind of amusing.
Right next to Nike.
Oh, right. Is that where Nike's based?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. And do they have like a giant, do they call it Nike Town? I mean,
they have a massive, massive campus. They actually just did a bunch of expansion. Now they have buildings that look like they're straight out of Star Wars. And
really?
Yeah, so it's a very nice campus. And my kids have taken tours there that I've chaperoned. And a lot of times you'll just see random athletes hanging out and all kinds of interesting people. So
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I made myself a pair of Nike ID shoes about 10 years ago. Do you remember those?
Those are cool. Yeah.
Do they still exist? Can you still do that?
I have no idea. I actually made a pair of those as well, but yeah, I don't know if you can still do that or not.
Right. Well, but the reason I mention it is because it would have been great if they had come from Portland, Oregon, but they actually came from China.
Yeah.
And I tracked them on the tracking, and I was like, wow, I paid like $150 for these shoes, which I'd put my name on, and actually they were disgusting. I'm not a shoe designer, and I should have known that. But I tracked them, and they literally traveled 12,000 miles to get to me. And I was like, that was like really my first experience of thinking that climate change is all our fault. These little shoes, just because of my own desire to create something, that they traveled such a distance. And it wasn't like they walked, they could have done because they're shoes.
Right.
But they didn't. They flew and they went on. Oh, it's so sad.
Yeah, I think, like most big corporations, Nike definitely has some skeletons in its closet. So,
yeah. So we'll talk about that in just a little while. Well, I'm very pleased to meet you, and I'm very thrilled
nice
that
to meet you.
are at the helm of this show. I'm merely your puppet. And, think of yourself as the puppet master.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Mario's a big fan of your show as well. So,
I'm a big fan of Mario's show and his spectacles as well. Anybody that can pull off a red spectacle. I mean, I'm chickening out here. I have no comment to mine.
That's definitely is a signature
it's
signature
fantastic.
thing.
I love it. It looks fantastic. Okay, I'm going to do the paper review then, and maybe we'll talk again in just a few minutes after.
All right.
We've worked our way through the newspapers. That's Gliss. I'm Anthony here on Backchannel. The Tampa Bay Times this morning leads with Democrats hope Roe flips governor's race. Yes, 2 women running in Florida, Nikki Fried and Annette Taddeo, in particular, could benefit, according to a political science professor. This is very interesting. So I really feel like, I've had a theory that really the likes of Ron DeSantis and people that are taking on these kind of extremist views that are so out of step with anybody who's not like a neo-fascist evangelical Christian nationalist. Because, we live in a modern world, and to give somebody the rights to their own body should be the baseline for normality. And if you're a religious person, you can still be religious and allow other people to not be religious. Do you see what I mean? That's what I'm saying. So what this is doing is it's putting a religious view, whether it be, evangelical Christianity in some cases, Catholicism, whatever it may be, but you are imposing those religious views on people who are secular. And so I have a feeling that maybe this might backfire on a lot of the Republican incumbents, because I don't sense that people generally are as religious as they might think they are. And I don't think people want to go back to a time where we have a kind of puritanical culture where everybody is in fear of God. Just my opinion. You're welcome to yours. A study says the Bay Area rents are inflated. Florida is the center of the national rental surge, new researchers found. The Florida Atlantic University College of Business, in partnership with researchers at Florida Gulf Coast University, they analyzed the U.S. rental markets to find which ones were the most overvalued or priced above its historical trend, according to a media release. In the 25 most overvalued rental markets, the leading 5 were all in Florida. Tampa Bay ranked 3rd. So there we go. DeSantis is he cares more about fighting with Disney than he does about, ensuring that the people of his state can afford to live. Locals take outrage to streets. Hundreds protested on both sides of Tampa Bay on Tuesday in the wake of the leaked draft of the Supreme Court opinion that would overturn Roe v. Wade. And somebody has, 2 staff writers at the Florida Times, the Tampa Bay Times, they have an opinion piece here. It's quite interesting. They say the draft of a U.S. Supreme Court opinion suggests that conservatives on the court have the votes to overturn the landmark 1973 Roe v. Wade pregnant person's right to an abortion. It's not known when the final ruling will be issued or how similar it is or how it will look to the draft, but Florida's own abortion law will soon change, regardless of what the nation's highest court does. Last month, DeSantis signed into law a bill that bans most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, and it takes effect on the 1st of July. So this is the point, isn't it? That even whatever the Supreme Court do, it looks like these, staunch Republican states are going to be just doing their own thing anyway. That's the tragedy of this. Thank you to you if you've just joined in. Outrageous Armadillo has popped in and is listening. Trevor can see us from Oklahoma. Hi, Trevor. You can click subscribe. It's the first time for you here on the show. Hope you're comfortable. Eden, Trinity, Carrie, thank you for being here. Lovely. I'm Anthony Davis. This is Backchannel. If you'd like to send me a message, and if you can see me right now, then you may be watching on an Echo Show or a Fire TV. Well, the magic word is say. So wake up your device. Just say her name. Then wake it up, say, and then your message. And if you're just listening right now on an Echo speaker, like Outrageous Armadillo is right now, then all you have to do is go to backchannel.tv and click Join the Chat. That's backchannel.tv, click Join the Chat. Easy. And that's how you can message me. We're looking at the morning papers. Let's jump now to the San Jose Mercury News for California. They lead this morning with newsroom pledges abortion measures and a photograph of a very handsome Gavin Newsom. I mean, you can say what you like about his politics, but the guy has a beautiful head of hair and a real chiseled jawline. I mean, who can argue with that? And slim as well. You know, I always think that if you can be slim, you will never age. It's very good advice. You know, you see people who are in there. Who was I thinking about? Oh, that's right, Jeff Goldblum. I went to see do a concert the other day, and he's 69 years of age, and he's so slim. I mean, he's also 6'4", but he's so slim. He could be 35. I'm telling you, I think I've just worked this out. That weight ages us. It also, though, stretches out the skin so we don't have so many lines. So maybe it's like 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. I'll leave you to think on that. Amid Roe v. Wade furor, Governor vows to enshrine women's right to choose in the state constitution. Yes, with the strike down of the nation's federally protected abortion rights appearing to be imminent, Governor Gavin Newsom on Wednesday pledged that a state constitutional amendment enshrining reproductive rights is in the works, while echoing fear that with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, other rights gleaned from the U.S. Constitution may be at stake. It's a hell of a moment to live in. We will not be defeated. A clearly indignant Newsom said, speaking at a Planned Parenthood Los Angeles headquarters. And a photograph of abortion rights activists demonstrating in front of the U.S. Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. yesterday. So there we go. There's Gavin and his crowd, and a photograph of the protesters there. And, you know, not just women. Everybody is there. What else do we have here? SJ votes for more time to clear camp. This is San Jose needs more time to complete its federally mandated closure of the Bay Area's largest homeless encampments, officials acknowledged this week, highlighting the immense challenge of eliminating street homelessness while grappling with a limited housing supply. Where are they going to live? I mean, you know, how can you do a clearance? How can you clear a home encampment, which is someone's home? I mean, you know, an encampment is a home. Where are they going to go? I mean, this is invariably what happens. You know, people are cleared, because I see it here. We have so many encampments here in Los Angeles, and I see them be cleared, and then I think, well, either they'll be back in like 2 or 3 days, or they'll just go somewhere else. And maybe this is what they do. They just clear them to try and, you know, make them less prone to disease, because of course that's part of the problem, where without sanitation or washing facilities, these encampments can become diseased very quickly. And so maybe clearing them and then having people resettle is good, provided, of course, those that do the clearing, the city with the police, give the encampment enough notice and say, look, Friday, clearing out time. You got any stuff you don't want, put it in the trash, recycle it. We're coming through to clear it, and then you can come back. I mean, that's what they should do, really, right? The city last year ordered to remove an estimated 200 people camped on a 40-acre site near San Jose International Airport, or face the potential loss of millions of dollars in federal funding. The city council now wants to push its original June 30 deadline to September 30th, while also expanding policies that dictate where homeless people can and can't camp all over the city. I mean, that's what you're going to have to do. You're just going to have to create spaces where you can camp, you know? A bit like Walmart saying you can park your RV there for a few days, you know? It's just, it works. I'm Anthony Davis. This is The Anthony Davis Show. It's Backchannel, and if you're enjoying the show, there's 2 ways you can support the show that would really help us out. If you're watching right now and you can see that subscribe button, please click it. Subscribing will let you know when we're going live. We've also got some special plans coming up for those VIPs who are subscribed. Another way to help out is, no matter where you're watching or listening, is by leaving a review. So go to backchannel.tv, click leave a review. Your positive reviews keep this show going. That's backchannel.tv and click leave a review. Okay, back to the papers. The Spectrum Daily News is next for... where is the Spectrum Daily News? Is it Arizona? I think it might be Arizona. Hurricane Mayor gives her first State of the City address. This is Hurricane Mayor Nanette Billings gave her first State of the City address this week, speaking to several dozen residents outside the city's community centre about plans for ambitious new infrastructure and water projects, and about the idea of dumping vote by mail in municipal elections to improve trust. What? To improve trust? I mean, you do know that in some countries, people only vote by mail. And in one of the states here, I forget which one it is, everybody votes by mail. Voting by mail is how people vote. It's normal. But unfortunately, in the last election, Conservatives decided to infect vote by mail by claiming it was fraudulent, which it wasn't. It never has been. People make mistakes on ballots. A handful, I think 475 votes across the entire election of 2020 were found to be in some way wrong. People filling them out wrong or not, whatever it was. 475 votes across the whole country. Not enough to overturn the election. There's always going to be error. Billings, who became the city's first ever female mayor after after winning election in November, gave her ideas for what it would take for Hurricane to keep up with fast-growing population and increased traffic from people visiting Zion National Park, while still fostering a sense of local community. So why you want to take away vote by mail then? This is Utah. Sorry, it's not Arizona, it's Utah. Yeah. She promised to do everything to take Hurricane back to primarily in-person voting for the next municipal election. So what are you going to do? You're going to pick everyone up in your car and drop them off at the polling place? Is that how you're going to do it? Utah elections are done primarily through mail-in ballots, with Hurricane using the process in the 2021 election in which Billings was elected. Yeah. After the speech, she said she didn't believe there had been any widespread fraud in local elections, but said that more general worries about election security after the 2020 election warranted having voters come back to the voting booths to cast their ballot. I mean, she's lying. It is just a lie. I can tell you that when we have in-person voting, we will know who voted and we will know that they voted, or if they did not vote, she said during the speech. I mean, there's just no intellectualism in any of these conversations. She said there was no fraud. This is just going to prevent people from voting. If you take away mail voting, no one is going to vote. And then invariably they have like one polling place. This is what Mitch McConnell does in Kentucky. Got rid of all the polling places. Just put one. That's how he stays in power. It's just corruption with a capital C. Also in the newspaper, Saturday is the National Fire Protection Association Wildfire Community Preparedness Day. It's held in the US and Canada each year on the first Saturday in May in an effort to come together on a single day to take action to raise awareness and reduce wildfire risks. This year, given limited in-person gathering due to the pandemic, the focus is on helping homeowners create defensible space around their homes. But as of April 23, 2 weeks before the observance, 30 homes in Arizona had already burned to the ground in the 19,000-acre tunnel fire outside of Flagstaff. Climate change is increasing the length of the fire season, said Cristiano Restano, an assistant professor and fire ecologist at the University of Nevada in Reno. The snow is melting earlier, and the rain that is falling is drying up sooner than it used to be, that the rain and the snow would keep the plants moist. Not anymore! So there we go. This is the Spectrum Daily News for you. Let's move on now to the Herald and news for Klamath Falls, Oregon. This is a good one. Thank you for this, Gliss. I have never used this one before. I like this. Oregon sees worrisome rise in fentanyl use. Yes, Oregon is seeing dangerous increases in fentanyl use as counterfeit pills contain the dangerous opioid that proliferates the region. Let's see, the word "the" was missing. That's what threw me. A new analysis, medical testing, and laboratory firm Millennium Health shows a 58% increase in fentanyl positivity in Oregon drug tests during the first quarter of 2022 compared to last year. Fentanyl can be 100 times stronger than morphine and 50 times more potent than heroin. It's frequently used in counterfeit oxycodone pills or is mixed with other hard drugs. That's right, people think they're buying cocaine and they're buying it kind of cut with fentanyl, and they're dying. You know? I mean, this is going to become... I mean, there are so many things that are going to cause us to, like, wipe ourselves out. You know, I really believe the human race is going to be gone inside, I don't know, a couple of hundred years. Probably less. I mean, maybe 100 years. I just cannot see how we can survive climate change. But I also can't see how we can survive, you know, the rise in things like, you know, fentanyl deaths. I really have quite a grim outlook for humanity at the moment. It's just at the moment, you know, every day it changes. But today I did a lot of reading yesterday about the temperature in the kind of South Asian continent, and you know it was 144 degrees Fahrenheit a couple of days ago. I mean, humans cannot survive in that temperature. The air conditioning won't work with those temperatures. That's where it was at. You know, water will not be able to... Water will evaporate at these temperatures. This is going to cause a huge problem for humanity. And, you know, a third of the planet's population lives there. A third of the planet lives in that region. Native Grown Museum Walking Tour sail to focus on drought-resistant plants indigenous to basin. Wallflower is the native plant species being offered in a plant sale. Love a wallflower. Yellow. Beautiful. Beautiful photograph on the front of the newspaper there. So that's nice. I've also got to like a bit of a doomsday thinking now. Gliss, maybe you want to come in and we can talk about this just for a second because it's very interesting. You know, I'm looking at this museum walking tour and I'm thinking... Hang on a second. What's the point? We're all going to be dead. I mean, this is where I'm at the moment. Like anything, these initiatives, anything like lovely that's happening, I'm thinking to myself, now that I know how crazy it is, and also the fact that invariably in Republican states, there's a denial that climate change even exists. And you know, Ron DeSantis recently said, he was asked a question about climate change, and his answer was, "Oh, that's Democrat stuff." You know, there's this denial that there is a heating planet and that humans have anything to do with it. And my fear is that, you know, now that they've stopped teaching about LGBTQ plus up to third grade, they'll do the same with climate change in schools in these states. They'll say, well, we can't teach climate change because it's just an opinion.
Yeah, and we talk about this on Mario's show all the time as well. He kind of has that same mentality that you have, where it's just kind of like he's going through the stories every day. We talk a lot about climate. An example personal to me, we had a heat wave last summer. We hit 117 in Portland, which is hotter than the hottest day in Las Vegas. Yeah. And, you know, I've lived in Portland for 20 plus years, and I couldn't have imagined, you know, seeing temperatures even above 110 in the Pacific Northwest. And, you know, right now, I mean, we're still in winter, basically. We've had a couple nice days. It was beautiful yesterday, but I mean, we've seen hailstorms in the last couple weeks. We've seen, you know, pretty much a little bit of everything. So I don't understand, you know, people that don't see the reality right in front of our faces, because it's a problem. You know, I have 4 boys, and I worry about the future for them. Just because
I was going to say I have kids as well. My kids are 3 and 6, and I just think, like, what are they going to do for a living? You know, like every penny that I make now that I can save, I'm saving for them. Right? Yeah. Like, because I'm just thinking, how are they going to work? Like, how are they going to live if the cost of living is rising like this?
Yeah.
And wages have not risen since 1980. I mean, there's just no hope for that generation, and so it's really going to be down to us to kind of support them. It's very worrying.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, like you said, there's so many things on the table, and now we're talking about human rights stuff. We're talking about, not teaching certain parts of history in schools and, like living wages. I mean, there's so many things on the table. It can be overwhelming at times to think about.
Overwhelming is a word I would use to describe having 4 kids. How on earth do you do that? Because, they say 1 is 1 and 2 is 20. I mean, I really struggle with 2, especially like when one's in that direction, the other's into that direction. They both want you,
It's a lot, but I will say, like, I don't know. I feel like after the second one, it almost like it's almost just like a extra addition. It's like once you've had 2, I think that changes the dynamics more than anything.
Yeah.
So after that, you just kind of get used to it, I guess.
Okay. Well done. Are you going to stop at 4 or maybe a couple more?
Oh yeah. No, that was like cut off. I was fine with 3, and it was like, okay, 1 more max, that's it. And he's 4. We have 2 teenagers as well.
Wow.
So I mean, we had kids young, so that's part of it. But yeah, no more.
They
kids.
all live with you. Your teenagers are still living with you.
Yeah.
No,
And I will say that helps. Having older kids, it does help a little bit.
Yeah, because they can help out and they can babysit and stuff.
Yeah.
Not that you ever get to go out.
Not too much, no.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I went out. For me, the pandemic was brilliant in that regard, because I was just like, finally, like my life is acceptable now.
Right.
Staying in is the new going out. I love it. Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to go back to some of these newspapers. So that was the Herald News. Let's jump on to, let's see which one's next here. We're going to go to Nevada next and Las Vegas Sun. What would the end of Roe mean? Here are some key questions and answers, they say. It said, would abortion become illegal everywhere in the U.S.? No, individual states would decide whether and when abortions would be legal. Many states would continue to allow them, and some have begun making provisions to help serve women who live in states that are likely to restrict abortion. I mean, that's what's going to become so crazy is the inequality, right? The fact that Republican states invariably will ban abortion, make it illegal, a prison sentence or a fine. And yet other states it'll just continue to be normal. It's normal. I was saying yesterday that maybe they should change the law and make men have mandatory vasectomies. And see how that goes down with the Senate or with the Supreme Court. It says, where would abortion access most likely change? It said half the states, according to the Center for Reproductive Rights, a group that fights abortion restrictions in court and closely tracks state laws. 25 states are likely to ban abortion if they are allowed to. So Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. In alphabetical order. I mean, we already have a population problem as it is. I wonder how the population might rise. But also, what life do children who are unwanted, who are born, what kind of life do they are they born into? And what about children who are unwell, who were disabled to such an extent that in other states the pregnancy would have been terminated at such an early stage that these children would not have had to have lived with these disabilities. Also on the front of the newspaper, the Las Vegas Sun, Southern Nevada's economy is playing catch-up, but opportunities exist, it says. And this is about a 155-acre union village. It's an integrated healthcare village in Henderson. They're talking about the opportunities existing for Southern Nevada to expand its economy significantly in the areas of healthcare, transportation, and manufacturing. So outside of, the gambling and tourism. And then there's an immigration story here about a A woman who was born in Britain and grew up in the United States with her parents. She's in Lakeland, Florida. She had an investor visa that offers no path to citizenship. That's so it says children of temporary visa holders who can't gain permanent residency are one of several groups urging the Biden administration to act on an immigration overhaul. Yeah, they grew up legally in the US, but they can't stay after they turn 21. So there we are. Interesting. I'm an immigrant and I'm a permanent resident now. I'm a green card holder, but I do think all the time about, if Trump got back in, he could just turn around and say, okay, all green card holders are having their visas removed and everybody has to return to their country, to their home country. It's not so crazy. Could happen. Houston Chronicle, draft opinion on abortion flips script. Dems now frustrated by system that helped a minority of voters shape Supreme Court. I saw someone on social media the other day and they argued, they were like, well, Roe v. Wade was decided by 8 men. And I was like, yeah, they decided to give women the right to choose. That's what they decided. This is the mentality of some people that they can't understand. They use all these excuses. They can't understand the fundamental loss of human rights and civil rights and women's rights. Putting the decisions in the hands of the people on issues such as this are essential. It says for nearly half a century, Republicans have railed against unelected judges, making rulings that they claim disenfranchise voters for deciding for themselves what laws govern hot-button issues. But since the release this week of a draft Supreme Court opinion that would overturn the long-standing constitutional right to abortion, Democrats have been the ones embracing that complaint, flipping the script as the party vents its frustration with a system that has empowered a minority of voters to elect lawmakers who've reshaped the High Court. Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck, they denounced the apparent conservative majority behind the draft opinion as in no way accountable to the American people. Jamie Raskin described them as hand-picked and gerrymandered by theocrats and autocrats. Elizabeth Warren cast the document as the culmination of a conservative effort to gain a majority on the bench who would accomplish something that the majority of Americans do not want. So why not reshape the court? I don't understand how you can complain about this. I'm talking about Joe Biden now. Pack the court with Democrats. Pack it. Look at the popular vote across the United States and take that percentage of Democrats and Republicans and make that the Supreme Court and have it reflect the nation exactly. Have it reflect the nation. But currently the Supreme Court with a 6-3 conservative majority does not reflect society. And so what are we left with? We're left with the loss of rights. Of women's rights in this case, but it'll move on and soon they'll ban gay people marrying and trans people changing their gender, and they'll block everything because they've started and they're like, this is good for us. And America won't look like the people that live within it. The country, the leadership will not reflect the people that live within it. And what will you end up with? That's when you'll have a revolt or a civil war or something will change. I mean, we already have a civil war underway, a left versus right civil war. We had an insurrection. We had a president try and commit treason against his own country. It's all happening. It's not like something we're waiting for. It's already happening. I mean, the insurrection was January 2021. We're now in May 2022. It's not like, oh, this could happen. It already happened. City bans converter sales to cut theft. This is an increase in catalytic converter thefts. It's prompted Houston City Council on Wednesday to ban the sale of used or cut emissions control devices. The ordinance makes it illegal to possess catalytic converters that have been cut apart to extract the valuable metals from the devices that remove pollutants from car exhausts. Is that the reason that people steal catalytic converters? I had no idea. I presume they just wanted to put them on cars that didn't. The converters, part of a car's exhaust system located near the muffler, are required by law to be installed in most vehicles to control pollution. The ordinance applies to catalytic converters that have been cut apart or cut off a vehicle rather than unbolted, and does not criminalize the sale of new parts or those carried out by cities' roughly 100 registered metal recycling facilities. That's interesting. School Board Races Center on CRT. This is, again, we're still in Houston, Texas. It says nearly every school board racing, school board race in the Houston region includes at least one candidate campaigning to keep critical race theory and books about LGBTQ+ matters out of their districts. Candidates vying for seats in the May 7 election in Clear Creek, Ford Bend, Katy, and Spring Branch ISDs have leaned into talking about the hot-button issues, as have Republicans across the country. I mean, it's not a hot-button issue. It's a made-up issue. There is no critical race theory teaching in schools. There isn't. What this is white supremacists, i.e., again, neo-fascist Christian nationalists who are invariably conservatives, not all conservatives, but an increasing majority, who are white supremacists. And they don't want any mention of race because they want white to be the superior race, because they fear that things are changing and that the demographic in America is changing, and they fear that the white people might become the minority. And so this is the way they push back. Thank you for your messages, by the way. Needed Condor is with us. Pervy is here. Restful, Peaceful Rattlesnake, Fluent Porcupine, Orin, Waiting Mouse. Stacy says, where is Carla today? Carla is otherwise engaged. So we have Gliss, who's in charge. Trevor is with us. Outrageous Armadillo. Thank you to everybody who is joining Backchannel today and for being here. Appreciate you very much. I'm Anthony Davis. We're here every weekday, Monday through Friday, 9 till 11 Pacific. That's 12 till 2 Eastern. You can send me a message yourself if you can see me right now and you're watching on an Echo Show or Fire TV. The magic word is say. So wake her up, say the word say, and then your message. If you're listening right now on an Echo speaker and you can't see me, simply go to backchannel.tv and join the chat there. That's backchannel.tv and join the chat. That's how you do it. Ed just popped in from Florida. Ed, welcome. What's it like living in Florida these days, Ed? Are you comfortable with the Disney fight, with the critical race theory argument that isn't even true? We're just talking about Texas. I was looking at the newspapers, the Houston Chronicle, saying that school board races center on CRT. This will be a huge trend from here on in, said Geronimo Cortina, a political science professor at Houston University. It's a new battleground in terms of the views on what schools should and should not be teaching our kids. They're not teaching critical race theory. Critical race theory is a module that is done in universities. And it not all universities, very few, and it is something that a very specific module that is an attachment to people studying social history. It is not a widespread teaching. What these people are calling critical race theory is the acknowledgement of non-whites in society being discussed in schools. That's what it is. It's the acknowledgement of slavery, the acknowledgement of the fact that growing up black in America is much harder than growing up white in America. It's an acknowledgement of the fact that there is a disparity. And what these people do is they claim that there's no racism. If you don't mention race, then you're not racist. And of course, that is the opposite of what needs to happen. We need to see race. We need to learn about culture. We need to learn about history. That is how we have an even playing field, by all being educated. But what they're doing here, wittingly, this is not something that they don't know what they know exactly what they're doing. They are trying to create segregation. They're trying to create a new generation of white supremacists. And my fear is they'll stop teaching about climate change as well, because they'll say that that is an opinion of the left. And it ain't. Okay, let's have a look at a little bit more here. That's the Houston Chronicle. Where should we go now? Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is, of course, where Patrick Lyoya was executed recently by a white police officer. He was a black man who just got pulled over in a traffic stop for having a registration that didn't match the vehicle and ended up being executed in the back of the head. Grand Rapids, Michigan. Anyway, the newspaper here, I wonder if it'll talk about that. Energy shift creates opening for world's largest batteries. This is interesting. Sprawled like a gigantic swimming pool atop a bluff overlooking Lake Michigan. An asphalt and clay pond holding enough water to produce electricity for 1.6 million households. It's part of the Ludington Pumped Storage Plant, which uses simple technology. Water is piped from a lower reservoir, the lake in this case, to an upper one, then released downhill through supersized turbines. Supporters call these systems the world's largest batteries because they hold vast amounts of potential energy for use when needed for the power grid. The hydropower industry considers pumped storage the best answer to questions hovering over the transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy to address climate change. How to get power when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing. They say, I wish we could build 10 more of these, said the Community Affairs Manager for Consumer Energy during a tour of the facility. But the utility based in Jackson has no such plans. Environmental and logistical challenges and potential costs in the billions of dollars led consumers to sell another would-be site near the lake years ago. The company is upgrading the existing plant with co-owner DTE Energy. They say constructing a new one doesn't make financial sense unless we get some help from the state or federal government. Well, you know, Elon Musk could have built these hydro plants with his $44 billion that he's just buying Twitter with. Do you know what I mean? I mean, surely a better use of the money. The company's decision illustrates the challenges facing pumped storage in the US, where such systems account for about 93% of utility-scale energy in reserve. While analysts foresee soaring demand for power storage, the industry's growth has lagged. And yet these energy companies make billions of dollars in profit. And there is no desire, it seems, to spend that money investing in infrastructure. Abortion in Michigan, state eyes the future in Roe v. Wade fallout. It says Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel said abortions will become illegal in Michigan immediately once Roe v. Wade is overturned. Because of a 1931 state law banning abortions apart from those necessary to preserve the mother's life. She's a Democrat. She said that no plans to prosecute abortions under the law if Roe v. Wade is overturned, but Michigan's individual county prosecutors could prosecute abortions if they choose to. She said, sorry, I've got hiccups now. I will not enforce this law because I think it will lead to further harm and further death of women in our state, Nessel said of the 91-year-old state law. So many laws, you know. I'm not used to this idea of federal law and state law, and where I come from, we don't really have things like that. You know, there are rules of local districts, you know, but that's to do with like local taxation. The law of the land is from the central government. It does not split like that. The law is the law. It's the nation's law. But I come from a small country that would fit inside California with, 65 million people in it. This country has 360 odd million people spread out over a landmass that is, a continent that is effectively the size of 100 countries. Well, 50 states. It's 50 countries, effectively. I'm Anthony Davis. This is Backchannel. We're live here every weekday, Monday through Friday. I'm here 9 till 11. Pacific. You can send me a message if you can see me right now and you're watching on an Echo Show or Fire TV. The magic word is say. So wake her up, say the word say, and then your message. And if you're listening right now on an Echo speaker and you can't see me and you'd like to send a message, just go to backchannel.tv, click join the chat. That's backchannel.tv and click join the chat. Gnarly Falcons just dropped in. Oh, Stacey says 307 million to be exact. What, in America? No, there's way more than that. There's way more than 307 million people. I think it's 362 million. Let me ask. How many people are in America? Oh, sorry, my mistake. 332,278,000. Stacey says 307 million. It's 332,278,200. That was by the last census, which was done last year. 332 million. I have to revise that. Where did I get 362? Oh, I got the 2 right. I was close, Let's just call it a draw. Gnarly Falcons popped in. Fluent Porcupine is here. Johnny is in from Florida. Oh, have you met Ed? Ed's also from Florida. Nice to see you. Welcome. Okay, let's continue with the old newspapers. Let's see what else is going on here. Oh, a quick reminder that Backchannel has a growing list of shows, including Haley and Alison's Good Morning. You can start from 3 a.m. Pacific, that's 6 o'clock Eastern, with 2 hours of silly fun and games. Haley and Alison and producer Will, they have trivia, as well as the answers to your burning questions and the news you might have missed. They're followed by Liv every day, who is not here every day. She's here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. From 5 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern. You can join her to celebrate the little things in life in an extraordinary way. Candid conversations, lots of laughs, and plenty of coffee will fuel you and encourage you to live every day. Well, except Tuesdays and Thursdays. And on air just before me is Get On Up with Jam and Renee. You can wake up on the West Coast with Community and Conscious Living. Jam and Renee have it all covered, from what people think to who's wearing what. You'll leave entertained and enlightened every day, and you'll learn how to pay it all forward. You see? There it is. Okay, let's jump on a couple more newspapers here. Let's go to Medford in Oregon now. Lots of Oregon today. I wonder why that is. They lead this morning with water supply reprieve. Spring rain may prevent fish die-off in the fall. Yes, fish that rely on the Rogue River may have gotten a reprieve after April rain and snow boosted water supplies. Lost Creek Lake, a massive reservoir north of Shady Cove, increased to 72% full as of this week. Managers are cautiously optimistic they'll have enough water to replace downstream into the Rogue River to help fish this year. I mean, yeah, it's not just the humans we have to help, it's the wildlife as well, More coverage of Roe v. Wade and also... What else? Oh, yeah, the Federal Reserve has intensified its drive to curb the worst inflation in 40 years. It's raised the benchmark short-term interest rate by a sizable half percentage point. The increase raised it to a range of 0.75 to 1%, the highest point since the pandemic struck. So there we go. And then let's go to the Washington Times next. I don't really like to read from the Washington Times because it's a very biased newspaper. It's actually owned by a church, and the whole thing is a little bit... Anyway, so what's interesting with the Washington Times, though, is if you read it with the bias in mind, if you know that it is very partisan, it's interesting to see how they, announce things. So they say, critics say Fed moved too late on rate hike. You see? So that's not news coverage. News coverage would say that there was a rate hike. Here they're like, the Fed moved too late on rate hike. So that's already a partisan headline. Fear recession will join more inflation. That again is partisan. US extradites pandemic aid fraud suspect from Croatia. Feds show they won't let cheats off the hook. The federal government has managed to extradite a man accused of bilking the government out of more than $7 million in COVID-19 money, marking the first person to be brought back from overseas to face prosecution. It's a guy who came back from Croatia to face wire fraud, identity theft, and illegal money monetary transactional charges. Also, Western leaders fear declaration of war with Russia's Victory Day. Yes, this is very concerning, isn't it? Russian forces pounded cities in central Ukraine on Wednesday night, capping a day of mounting concern among Western leaders that Moscow is preparing to ramp up its attacks and may even formally declare all-out war against Ukraine when Russia holds its annual victory celebrations early next week. While a top Kremlin spokesperson called such speculation nonsense, Russia's defense chief suggested Moscow is poised to dramatically expand missile strikes on areas of Ukraine that it believes are being used by the US and NATO allies to channel increasingly powerful and sophisticated weapons to the Ukraine military. Immigration law publication calls for Mayorkas impeachment. Well, this is also garbage. This is another politically partisan article. It says a publication for immigrant rights lawyers said this week that Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is acting in an anti-immigrant manner and should be impeached. Again, I mean, all of this is just partisan garbage. Pro-lifers cautious on Supreme Court win. It says the leaked Supreme Court draft striking down Roe v. Wade if it stands would represent the biggest victory in the pro-life movement's half-century history, but activists are taking a wait-and-see approach instead of a victory lap. The response from major pro-life groups, I shouldn't really call them pro-life groups because they're not pro-life, they're anti-abortion. You know, the branding of pro-life makes it sound like you desire to kill if you are not pro-life, and that's not the case. You know? The response from major pro-life groups, from anti-abortion groups, was muted but hopeful as leaders sought to keep expectations in check after a bombshell report on Monday and a wait for the final opinion in the Mississippi abortion case, which is expected next month. So there we go. That's the Washington Times, everybody's least favorite newspaper. That's kind of how it looks. I mean, lots of newspapers have a bias of some sorts. The Washington Times, if you look at who owns them and do a little bit of your own research, you'll find out that, it's a kind of a fascinating kind of history there. Lauren has joined us. Hi, Lauren. Welcome. Nice to see you. Stacey says you got someone from Oregon helping you out today. Is that the reason why I'm getting a lot of Oregon newspapers? That's fine. I kind of like it. Kearney has joined us as well. Welcome. First time on the show from Georgia. Nice to see you. If you want to hit the subscribe button, then you are welcome to do so. It's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Let's look at some of these stories now that I kind of suggested earlier that we were going to look at. The Democrats grasping for a foothold over the voter anger on abortion. Yes, it says their most vulnerable Democrats haven't been waiting for direction. Pink-hued protests outside courthouses, clinics and state houses have popped up on short notice, headlined by incumbents like Chris Pappas, Mickey Sherrill, Susie Lee. Many have already begun calling for more campaign volunteers this fall, while fundraising pleas to have come from both swing and safe blue districts spanning Georgia to New York to California. They say Republicans are going to be in a very tough place right now. They have to defend something that Republicans said would never happen, said Senator Ben Ray Lujan, who ran the House Democratic campaign arm during its 2018 takeover. I think this is a very bad issue for them. Well, that's right. All of these, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, they all were interviewed in the last couple of years. They've all said that the precedent of Roe v. Wade is on the statute. It will not change. It cannot change. They all said that out loud. There's video recordings of them all saying it, including Clarence Thomas, whose wife, as we now know, is an extremist, far-right extremist herself, and has been trying to manipulate her husband. Clearly, she refers to him in text messages to senior Trump officials as my friend. Lujan and others helped translate suburban anti-Trump anger that year into a Democratic wave, including in Pennsylvania, where the party, with help from Wild, flipped multiple seats. While alluding to that robust 2018 turnout, Lujan suggested the current building fury from women from women voters over Roe could play a similar role. Republicans, they didn't learn from past elections when women showed up. You know? I mean, this is, you know, I just want the country to be represented properly. You know, that's my feeling. And sadly, you know, this far right extremism is not representative of the country as a whole. It's a minority, and yet it is becoming a majority in leadership. And that is the disparity that is going to cause the next civil war. The fact that the country is being run by white supremacists, and the country is not white, and the country is not segregated as the leadership would prefer. You know, the country is increasingly forward-thinking and integrated in so many ways. I'm Anthony Davis. This is Backchannel. We're here every weekday, Monday through Friday, between 9 o'clock and 11 Pacific. That's 12 and 2 Eastern. If you can see me right now and you're watching on an Echo Show or Fire TV, the magic word is say. So wake her up, say the word say, and then your message. If you can't see me and you can just hear me, that means you must be listening on an Echo speaker. Then go to backchannel.tv, click join the chat. That's backchannel.tv, and click join the chat. We'll do the US News Update. It's a podcast that I make. We'll do that in just a couple of minutes here at 10 o'clock Pacific. It's a little kind of 2-minute interlude. In the meantime, let's have a quick look at some of your messages. Thank you very much for getting in touch. Lots of people have been. What do we have here? Got Johnny, got Ed, Needed Condor, Pervy. Peaceful Rattlesnake is in as well. Welcome. Orin, Waiting Mouse. And obviously hi to Stacy, who's here. Johnny's watching in Florida. Kearney's watching in Georgia. So thank you for being around and being part of this conversation. We're just looking now at how Democrats are grasping for a foothold on voter anger over abortion. Turnout was already a worry for Democrats this cycle. They noted that warning signs in statewide contests like Virginia's last year, where Republicans showed up in dramatically higher numbers than expected. That's particularly true in Pennsylvania this fall, with critical House seats, an open Senate seat, and a governor's race all expected to be competitive. And that effort to drive out voters has been put into overdrive. The winner of the governor's race will determine whether Pennsylvanians will eventually have their own abortion ban. The state's congressional seats could be crucial to whether national Democrats can act on abortion access after the High Court's final ruling, expected next month. And local Democrats here aren't going to let their voters forget it. Speaking to a worked-up crowd in Allentown on Tuesday, a top Democrat in Pennsylvania's State House delivered a stern reminder to supporters. He said, "Someone asked me this morning, what's your plan? I said, my plan is Tuesday, November the 8th. Oh, sorry, this was Joanna McClinton, female. She roared as she addressed the rally. Behind her, the group, which included one grey-haired woman waving a metal coat hanger, broke into a cheer of Vote Blue in 2022. Yeah, the fear of the metal coat hanger. Terrifying. Another middle-aged woman held a sign that read, "Do rapists have parental rights?" while an older man wore a shirt featuring characters from the dystopian TV show Handmaid's Tale. That sort of surge in enthusiasm Democrats acknowledged behind closed doors was sorely needed. Even with full control of Washington, the party remains paralyzed by its slim congressional margins and ongoing policy disputes between its left and centrist flanks. I wouldn't say centrist. I'd say Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema are conservatives. They've admitted to it. They are bought and paid for. Okay, we'll come back and have more conversations about this in just a few moments. First, let's take a look at the US News Update. It's a little podcast that I make every day. You can download it wherever you get yours. And here it is. It's Thursday, May 5. From the Volley Network, this is your daily US News Update. I'm Anthony Davis. President Joe Biden sharply criticized former President Donald Trump's MAGA movement as extreme on Wednesday, while touting his Democratic administration's efforts to reduce the U.S. deficit, which rose under his Republican predecessor. In what could be a preview of a midterm campaign speech, Biden took aim at what he dubbed MAGA Republicans, who he charged with protecting billionaires at the expense of working-class Americans, while only paying lip service to budget responsibility. Biden, suffering from low approval ratings, is increasingly going on the attack against Republicans ahead of the November midterm elections, which will determine which party controls the House of Representatives and Senate. Biden has criticized a Florida law signed by Republican Governor Ron DeSantis that bans public school teachers from classroom instruction about sexual orientation or gender identity, and his administration is preparing for a Supreme Court ruling that could overturn a landmark 1973 decision on abortion rights. What are the next things that are going to be attacked? Because this MAGA crowd really is the most extreme political organization that's existed in recent American history, he said. Republicans have blamed an historic rise in inflation on Biden and his fellow Democrats. Some experts have linked inflation to government spending to safeguard workers and the economy during the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as global supply constraints that have caused a rise in inflation across the entire world. Your daily US news update is part of the Volley Network. To hear my live daily morning show, ask your Amazon Echo device to open Backchannel. There it is, the US News Update. It's a little podcast. You can download it wherever you get yours. I'm Anthony Davis. This is Backchannel. I'm your host here, the only place where you, on your Echo device, can watch and listen to live shows and chat with hosts in real time. I'm here every weekday, Monday through Friday, between 9 and 11 Pacific. That's 12 and 2 Eastern. You can send me a message, ask questions, chime in on what we're talking about, or anything else you want to send my way. If you can see me right now and you're watching on an Echo show or a Fire TV, the magic word is say. So just wake her up, say the word say, and then your message. And if you're just listening right now on an Echo speaker and you can't see me, then you can message at backchannel.tv. So just go to backchannel.tv. I'm here in Los Angeles, California, and Gliss is producing the show from Oregon this morning. It's a truly, it's a... Gliss, you can pop in if you like. I just was trying to think, because of my geography is not so great. Oregon is, you're like kind of East Coasty, right? No.
Kind of, yeah.
Where? Middle? Where?
It's like probably about an hour away from the coast. It's not that far in. Yeah, it's right at the top of the state. So basically, when you cross over into Washington, that the first big city is Vancouver, which is kind of considered part of the Portland metro.
Right.
Area.
I've been to Maine. Are you near Maine?
No. I'm in Portland, Oregon. So
yeah, I know. But
yeah.
Just, other side.
I lived here as a kid as well, and we actually did like a pen pal thing with a classroom in Portland, Maine. So
really, that's interesting. Yeah. Portland, Maine was very white when I went there. I was amazed. It was like I was playing a game called Spot the Black Person, and I didn't win anything. And I went to a lobster fest that they had there because, of course, Maine lobster is very famous. And I was like, nope.
Portland, Oregon is actually also very white.
Yeah.
Very progressive city, but it's not the most diverse city. I've lived in the Bay Area as well. I went to high school in the Bay Area.
Okay.
And so it's not a diverse city, but it's a very progressive city.
That's good. It's nice to know that the two can kind of coexist. I recently went on a trip to Cleveland, Ohio, which I have never been there before, and that was also a kind of interesting experience because the pandemic was still raging here in California, and when I got to Cleveland, there was no pandemic. You know, like it didn't
Yeah.
exist. Nobody was wearing a mask. Like every restaurants were busy. It was people were eating indoors. All the stuff that we couldn't do here in California. And I was like, wow. And you know, I'm learning about this country, and I love it. I choose to live here. I don't want to live in England anymore. I've done that. But I feel like, you know, this really isn't one country. You know, England is very much one country.
Yeah.
Well, it's that, you know, United Kingdom is 4 countries, but it's very much one country in England. And yet America really is 50 different countries. And even some places, you know, like Hawaii or Puerto Rico, that the former president didn't even realize were America.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, even within states, I mean, Oregon is a very purple state. You know, our politics are very democratic because of places like Eugene and Portland,
Right.
where most of the population are. But when you move east in the state of Oregon, it's almost like a blend of Idaho, like kind of more what their culture and politics is. So it is interesting. Different places you go across the country, it changes, you know, a lot.
But does that make it impossible to govern? I mean, is that part of the problem? And why politics is so divided is that the country is so big, and the way it's governed, you know, maybe there just shouldn't be a federal government. You know, maybe everything should just be localized. You know, is that the solution? How do you manage something like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, because, you know, we talk about that all the time on the drive. It's you know, it is the political climate is just so unhealthy right now, and as you were talking about earlier, you know, you talk about the last couple of elections with the popular vote and stuff. It doesn't seem like the system is really set up on a federal level to, you know, really carry the values of the majority of Americans.
But it's done on purpose. I mean, it's not an accident. You know, this was created in this way. The Electoral College was created to enable conservatives to win when they have no supporters. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's a rigged system. And, you know, so that's why there are people that campaign to abolish the Electoral College, and yet there's no appetite for it. And my worry is that Joe Biden is so institutionalized because he's been, you know, as a senator, and he's just so, and he's 160, obviously, so, you know, he's just, that's all he knows. He's just the wrong man to be an abolitionist, don't you think?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I don't think he was the best candidate. I think, you know, maybe
he was a necessary candidate.
Exactly. He was right. He was the guy who could
like
win.
A conservative, right?
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, it's I don't know. I don't really know how we move forward with all this stuff, because you're seeing more states, you know, like depending on where you talk about just kind of the difference in different places like Oregon, California, more progressive politics that are on a state level trying to, you know, kind of combat things like the Roe versus Wade thing that just happened the other day. So, I mean, and in more conservative states, you're seeing them kind of ramp up for if this actually goes through to basically make abortion illegal.
But, you know, I was looking at a list of the countries where abortion is illegal, right? The countries, not the states, the countries around the world. Because, you know, we can all become institutionalized if we stay in America and if we don't travel. And that's why I moved 5,500 miles, because I believe that to really live, you have to kind of marinate yourself in other cultures.
Sure.
And because we can read about it as much as we like, but in terms of really soaking it up, you have to kind of be there. And, you know, the countries that have banned abortion are places like the Congo and Afghanistan. I mean, that's what we're dealing with. You know, it's like America is Bruce Willis, you know? America is the future. It represents the future. It doesn't represent the past. It doesn't represent this kind of this thinking, you know. And I encourage people to look at the list of the countries on the planet, and there's not that many of. There's about 20 countries that have banned abortion completely, and they are none of those places you would want to take a vacation to.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that this has stood in our country for more than half a century, and we're in the year 2022 going to take a step backwards on something like this.
Because a minority of people
Right.
are pushing for it, a minority group. And what's very clever, because I do think Republican politics is very clever, they manipulate it to make it look like this is what the people want.
Sure.
There's never been a referendum. It's like they've never really asked the people what they want. It's not representative. It's about power and control and white supremacy, fundamentally. Isn't it a tragedy that racism is like at the very foundation of everything that seems to happen here? I was talking to a friend the other day about this because they work in the catering business, and their boss was berating them because they went home early after a day working in catering. And I said, well, how many hours are you supposed to do? And they said, you're expected to do 16 to 18 hours a day. 16 to 18 hours a day, Gliss.
That's crazy.
Well, it's slavery.
Yeah.
It's modern slavery. They call it contemporary slavery. You can look up contemporary slavery and see how so many humans, they reckon there's around 16 million enslaved humans in the United States that work in this kind of environment where they are forced, their labor is forced.
Yeah.
I worked in Norway for a little while, and the hours that people work there are 7 a.m. till 3 p.m. with no lunch break. That's how they work in Norway. You go to work at 7 a.m., you eat your lunch at your desk, you take your break, at your desk, and then at 3 o'clock, everybody goes home, no one stays late, because they value you being with your family.
And I bet it's more productive as well.
More productive.
Yeah.
Because people are energized, they're not exhausted. But I saw the email from my friend where the boss had written you were expected to do 16 to 18 hours a day. And I explained, and my friend is black, so of course this is adds another layer, because I just said this is a white boss asking a black person to work 18 hours a day. I said, you want to talk about this? And it's like, it's the owner of the company is making millions, just bought a beautiful second home, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah. I as I said, I went to high school in the Bay Area. I had friends that lived in Palo Alto, which is one of the richest areas in the country. And I had friends that lived in East Palo Alto, which was one of the most dangerous areas in the country for years and years. And they didn't even have a grocery store or a police station until I was in high school, which was like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And so, people in those communities, if you're a single mother and you have 3 kids, what else are you supposed to do? And you still can't, make a living wage. So, the chips are stacked against them in places like that.
And yet people like Bernie Sanders, who have been advocating for decent wages and working rights, workers' rights, they get laughed at by people. And there are no labor laws in America. There's no federal labor laws. It's not illegal to work 18 hours a day. The European Union has labor laws, and the most you're allowed to work is 8 hours, and then if you work 10 hours, you have to get paid those next 2 hours time and a half, and if you work 2 more hours, 12 maximum, then you have to get double pay. And that's the law.
Yeah. It seems it seems like we could be making a lot of improvements here.
I don't wish to criticize, because I love this country. I choose to live here more than anywhere else. But I also think that sometimes it takes immigrants to actually highlight the problems.
Yeah.
Because we have perspective. And if you look through history, a lot of the change makers have been immigrants.
Yeah.
Because America was built by immigrants. And yet, and that's the crazy thing, isn't it? It's like the white supremacists who claim ownership of America, they're not even Native American.
Right.
So there's this huge contradiction that exists.
Yeah.
And no one seems to talk about it.
Yeah, a lot of entitlements when, this isn't, we were guests here before anybody else.
Right. It's very interesting to me. Okay, thank you. Appreciate you. That's Gliss. I'm Anthony. This is Backchannel. If you would like to send a message, and you can see me right now and you're watching on an Echo Show or Fire TV, the magic word is say. So just wake up your device, say the word say, and then your message. If you're listening on an Echo speaker and you can't see me, you can go to backchannel.tv and click join the chat. That's backchannel.tv and click join the chat. Easy. Let's see who's in the chat right now and who we can chat to. Parkash has popped in. Magenta Monkey is here. Vivacious Carp. What else? Stacey says you should try s'mores. They're yum yum. I don't think I've ever had a s'more. That's like a marshmallow that you kind of heat on the campfire, I think. Yeah. So you're welcome to message me anything that's on your mind, whatever you would like to say, then you're very welcome to do so. You can also support the show. There's a couple of ways you can do that. If you're watching right now and you see the subscribe button, just click it. Subscribing will let you know when we are going live, and also we have some special plans coming up in the next few weeks for those of you who are subscribed. Another way you can really help me out, no matter where you're watching or listening, is leaving a review. So go to backchannel.tv and click leave a review. Your positive reviews will help keep this show going. So visit backchannel.tv and click leave a review. A draft Supreme Court opinion striking down Roe v. Wade has progressives fearing the conservative majority could use the same reasoning to target LGBTQ plus people. And as well as, other rights, contraception and, various things. And other protections grounded in a constitutional right to privacy could be vulnerable to the same argument that they're not deeply rooted in this nation's history and tradition. As Justice Samuel Alito wrote in his draft opinion published on Monday by Politico, that would overturn the 1973 Roe v. Wade and 1992 Planned Parenthood versus Casey decisions. The opinion's disapproval of a broad understanding of a constitutional right to privacy implicates a host of others, from sexual relations to marriage to procreation, according to legal scholars. They say this opinion, if it becomes official constitutional law, would be a tipping point in a direction quickly sliding us backwards, really almost to the point, to the early part of the 20th century in terms of what the Constitution protects and how it limits state action that trammels what we now take for granted as fundamental rights, said Columbia Law professor Catherine Frank, who directs the school's Center for Gender and Sexuality Law. Well, in his draft, Alito said attempts to justify abortion through appeals to a broader right to autonomy and to define one's concept of existence proved too much. Alito noted the outcome does not undermine other privacy decisions in any way, because those other rights don't implicate the critical moral question posed by abortion. Well, the majority's legal reasoning could still shift before an opinion is ultimately announced, and the draft published included no dissenting opinions, which are still likely in the works. But several justices said during oral arguments in December that such an argument could undermine a host of other rights. In Roe and Casey, the cases on which the right to abortion rests, the court said that this is inherent in our structure. There are certain personal decisions that belong to individuals, and the states can't intrude on them. That's what Justice Sonia Sotomayor said. Those personal decisions have included the right of religious parents to homeschool their children, the right to use contraceptives or not, and the right to marry. She said, I fear of those things are written in the Constitution, she said, suggesting they could now also be called into question. And this is what I was saying, the reason abortion is such a divisive issue is because effectively the reason that people are anti-abortion is purely on religious grounds. And by banning abortion, you're effectively pushing your religious beliefs on other people. And the whole point of this, the whole point of the way the Constitution is written, says that you should be able to practice the religion that you choose without impairing others in their decision to practice or not practice. Cynthia Suhu, a professor of law and co-director of the Human Rights and Gender Justice Clinic at the City University of New York, made a similar point. She said the same arguments that Justice Alito makes against recognizing constitutional protections for abortion can be made about LGBTQ plus rights and the right to access contraception. She said, once you kick out the stilts underneath Roe, there is nothing to rest those other decisions on. There's no constitutional foundation for the Lawrence decision saying that criminalizing same-sex sex is unconstitutional, or the Obergefell decision that says same-sex couples have constitutional rights to marry. Like state abortion bans, laws prohibiting same-sex marriage or sex have sat dormant in state statutes and constitutions since the Supreme Court made those laws dead letter in 2015. Now, those old laws can be impetus for a new wave of conservative legal challenges to privacy interest rulings. This, according to Jason Pearson, a political science professor at the University of Illinois Springfield and researcher of same-sex marriage and sexuality in politics. Roughly half of states still have some prohibition on gay marriage, and a handful of other states prohibit sodomy, either sex between same-sex partners or certain sex acts between opposite-sex partners. Michigan is one of them, where the state's first openly LGBTQ Attorney General, Dana Nessel, said she's extremely concerned about how Michigan's unused laws could spring back to life as conservative activists bring cases seeking to chip away at other U.S. constitutional privacy interest rulings. Once you start to attack the basis for Roe, I think all those other building blocks start to fall. And this is really the issue, isn't it? It's not just about abortion. And unfortunately, this is where the intellectual argument falls down on the side of conservatives, because they fail to see how Roe v. Wade is a landmark ruling and how it has far-reaching constitutional effects beyond just abortion. If you have a view, and all views are welcome, not just my opinion, yours too, then you can message me in the usual way. Wake up your device, say the word "say," and then your message. That's wake it up, say the word "say," and then your message. Easy. By the way, Backchannel has a growing list of shows, including Kate Cocker's Everyday Positivity Show on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 a.m. Pacific, that's 9 o'clock Eastern, for an hour of positive news and good vibes. And then following my show is your pal Hal Rudnick. He'll be here taking you on a tour of comedy, news and pop culture from 11 o'clock Pacific, that's 2 o'clock Eastern, and we'll catch up with your pal Hal at around 10:45 here. We'll talk to him on the show. And don't forget to check out The Drive with Mario Smith, weekdays from 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern. Everyone's drive home needs a second look, so Mario will make sure you're in the know. Let's take a look at this climate change story about businesses shaping how we talk about climate change, and sometimes how this can stop us from paying attention to their actions. It's a very interesting story. Cooperative approaches like this, often led by lobbyists or interest groups, show that companies could be effective in limiting new regulations. Public opinion could be shaped by the language and images brands use, and some of the wind could be taken out of public campaigns. In 1992, the United Nations held a conference on environment and development at Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. The conference, which came to be known as the Rio Earth Summit, aimed to address inequalities in global development and reduce dependence on fossil fuels. James Rose says, borrowing a strategy from the past, businesses recognized that the best defense against the environmental movement's arguments for more government control over corporate activities was attack. James Rose, now an associate professor of environmental studies at the University of Victoria in Canada. Corporate social responsibility, he says, became the preferred strategy for quelling popular discontent. The World Business Council emerged in response to the Rio Summit, said Jessica Dempsey, a political ecologist at the University of British Columbia in Canada. It was this kind of moment of reckoning with the environment and development challenges that were coming to a head in the late 1980s. The World Business Council was formed, like many other interest groups, to grow their power, said Dempsey. They recognized they could do more. They could be more influential in these multilateral forums if they worked together. So the world's largest corporations were like, we should work together because we have interests that are a threat. And the cooperative action was a success. A feeling among business participants was that the substantive output was positive. It could have taken a negative stance on the role of business, and there was at one time the real possibility that the conference might be pushed to lay down detailed guidelines for the operations of transnational corporations. But they fended off the threat. They said the need for sustainable transformation of the systems that govern our world is more urgent than ever. And this is very interesting because, business really is responsible for so much of the climate change, of the carbon emissions. This is a huge percentage of this comes from the business world. Without an agreement from governments of the 179 countries represented at the summit for tighter regulations on fossil fuel use, it was left to companies and the lobbyists who represent them to self-regulate. Free market environmentalism, based on a principle of economics called self-interest, whereby if companies act in their own best interest, their output will benefit the customer. In the case of the free market environmentalism, if companies can win over more customers by acting in a sustainable way, then they will do so, and less responsible companies will be penalized by the market. But free market environmentalism assumes that consumers are able to tell which companies are acting responsibly, and which are motivated to choose the most environmental option, which might not be the best or the cheapest. And this is the problem, that advertising is misleading. And sometimes companies can give the impression that they do a certain thing. For example, I started a trial with one of these food delivery companies, where they send you the meals. And they said the slogan was fresh food, organic food prepared by chefs daily. And I thought, well, this is good. If it's a chef using organic ingredients, doing it by hand, then I can get into that because, I don't want to eat processed food and I don't want to eat stuff that's like made by a robot. I really want real cooking. Just I don't have the time to cook all the meals, so this helps me out a bit. Anyway, I did the trial. So it was like heavily discounted. They send you like 7 days worth of meals. Well, only 2 of them were edible. They were all in plastic containers. The thing that they transported them in was like with these gel packs, which are not recyclable. There was loads of packaging and cardboard. And then when I looked on the back of the actual food boxes and I looked at the food, I was like, a chef didn't make this. This is robot food. This is processed robot food. So the whole thing was fake. The marketing was brilliant. The way it looked, the packaging, the production, all of it was great. The advertising was genius. But in reality, it was just more processed garbage. It didn't even look like food. And that's my worry, is that we are living in a world where people are very gullible and we don't make enough effort to question, to ask questions. And, we have a food crisis in America. We have food deserts where in some parts of the country, like Kentucky, you can't get fresh food. You can get a Taco Bell or you can get a Popeyes or something, but you can't get real fresh vegetables, fresh food. It's all being exported, sent to other parts of the country, or not being grown at all. And so people are not eating nutritious food, they're eating garbage. And the problem with that is they get ill because they'll get cancer. And then, of course, we don't have a healthcare system in America. So people will then spend their life savings. They worked hard all their lives, hours and hours and hours every day, and they end up spending that money on keeping alive, paying for healthcare, which in so many other countries is free. Where I'm from, it's free. Nobody has to pay for health. Betsy's joined us. Hello, Betsy, in Alaska. Phoenix is here as well. Cheap Husky has dropped in as well. Welcome. Phoenix and Cheap Husky are brand new to the show. You can click the subscribe button if you're watching on a Echo show. Yogi's here in Georgia as well for the first time. Welcome, Yogi. Nice to see you. Click the subscribe button if you can. Just looking at the interesting effects of companies that self-regulate their environmental credentials. Have you ever done that? Have you ever bought something that you thought was either organic or fresh or good for you, and it turned out not to be? I mean, they have this with orange juice. I drink orange juice occasionally, not all the time, because it has a lot of sugar in it, but I like freshly squeezed orange juice, and there's one place, there's a Gelson's that I very rarely buy it from, and it's quite big, but it literally is just, they have a squeezing machine out back. It's like $12, and it's this big, and I swear to you, it's the best orange juice you've ever tasted. It's $11.99, and normally I wouldn't dream of paying that, but this is like a special occasion thing. It lasts all week. And it's completely delicious. It's literally the juice of oranges. Nothing else. But then in Trader Joe's, I also buy a thing of orange juice that's $5.99, and that claims to be freshly squeezed, and yet it tastes completely different to the $11.99 one. It tastes kind of processed in some way. And then they have this new one called cold pressed, which they claim is healthier for you, but it's disgusting. Doesn't even taste like orange juice, just tastes like water. And then, of course, you have things like Tropicana, which are just sugar. It's like fake orange juice. It's designed to look like orange juice. And then below that, you have things like Sunny D, which claim to be orange juice and are not orange juice at all. And all of these things claim to be the same thing, and none of them are. But who can afford to pay $11.99 regularly to drink freshly squeezed oranges? I mean, you're better off, obviously, buying oranges and squeezing them. But people don't want to do that. It's a bit like people that are prepared to take a tablet instead of changing their lifestyle, like a statin. I was actually prescribed a statin because I had a high cholesterol, and I did take it briefly. There's so many. Statins are the biggest selling drug on the pharmaceutical market. It's worth hundreds of billions of dollars every year, and arguably nobody needs to take them. Do you know there isn't a solitary shred of proof to say that taking a statin extends your life expectancy? Are you aware of that? There's not a solitary shred of evidence to say that a statin has saved anybody's life. They can't find the evidence because it doesn't exist. It's supposed to reduce your risk of heart attack, but there's no evidence. And even the scale that says that, you've got high cholesterol if you're over 200, that scale was invented by the pharmaceutical companies who invented the statins. The whole thing is a scam. I took the statin for a little while, and I got body aches, so I had to take a Q10 to deal with the body aches, a supplement. And I was like, what am I doing? So I went back to the doctor, because you must do all of this with your doctor. You don't change your meds without talking to your doctor first. And I said to the doctor, can I just do this with diet? I said, why didn't you suggest changing my diet first? Before prescribing a drug, why didn't you suggest changing the diet? And he said, well, most people don't want to change their diet. They'd rather keep eating fast food and just take a statin. And I said, yeah, but it's your job to train people out of this. Because the problem is, if you eat fast food and take a statin, you're still going to die young. The statin's not reversing the effects of the fast food to enough of an extent. So I went vegan. Stopped eating meat and dairy and eggs, and my cholesterol, which was 228, went down to 186. I'm just saying that, we owe it to ourselves. Our body is the only place that we have to live. We only get one of them. So we really have to look after it. And yet, if we're stressed or we have problems or, financial issues, or we tend to medicate with food. We tend to overeat, eat the wrong food, make ourselves feel better. And it's so destructive, so unhealthy. So how do we qualify this, How do we make a change for the best. I mean, the best way is individual responsibility, isn't it? And if we all do that, then we have collective responsibility. And before you know it, we are saving the planet at the same time. You know, I don't use air conditioning, even though my apartment gets hot. I don't use it because of the planet. I drive an electric car. I don't buy gas and haven't for 5 years. And I bought a very cheap electric car. It was $4,000 on Craigslist. You know, we can do these things if we make the effort. So we've been looking at how companies blame us for climate change, as businesses shape how we talk about climate change, and sometimes this can stop us from paying attention to their actions. You can leave a review for the show. Go to backchannel.tv, click the leave a review button. Not only can you send us your thoughts on the show that way, but you can leave suggestions for upcoming segments as well, if there's a segment that you would like to see upcoming. I'm Anthony Davis. This is Backchannel, the only place on your Echo device where you can watch and listen to live shows and chat with hosts in real time. I'm here every weekday, Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. Pacific. And if you can see me, you're watching on an Echo show or Fire TV. The magic word is say. If you can't see me, then you're probably on an Echo speaker. Then you can just go to backchannel.tv in your browser and click join the chat. That's backchannel.tv and click join the chat. Yogi's joined us, Betsy's here, Phoenix, Cheap Husky, Kareem has popped in. Hi Kareem, it's been a while. Parkash is here, Magenta Monkey, Vivacious Carp, and Kearney's in as well. So thank you all of you for joining Backchannel and for sharing your thoughts and feelings on the chat. We're going to catch up with Hal in about 9 minutes time and find out what's going on in his show. First, I want to talk about Eugene Bullard. He was born on this day in 1917. Oh, no, sorry, he wasn't born on this day. He gained his pilot license on this day from Aero Club de France. He became the first African-American military pilot in the French Air Service. He was an African-American pilot. He flew for the French during World War I. He was one of the first black military pilots in the world. Isn't that interesting? Born in Columbus, Georgia, 1895. He grew up in a very segregated society, a bit like now. In 1913, he left for France to get away from the racism that he experienced in the United States. And he settled in Paris and found work as a musician and boxer. He moved to Paris in 1912, when World War I began. Joined the French Foreign Legion, eventually became a pilot. He flew in many combat missions and was even shot down one time. And after the war, he returned to the United States, but he was not welcomed back with open arms. He eventually settled in Paris again, where he died in 1961. So he died at 66. He was born in 1895 in Columbus, Georgia. He was a Libra. I love that it puts that. He was a Libra. And he gained his first pilot's license from Aero Club de France, became the first African-American military pilot in the French Air Service. So that's on this day. We're just celebrating special people. We did Black History Month, we did Women's History Month, and this is the first black pilot to fly for the French in World War I. Interesting, isn't it? Gliss, are you still there? I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. I'm actually going to be going on an aeroplane for the first time in 4 weeks' time. When did you last go on an aeroplane, Gliss? Have you...
February, actually.
Really? Where did you head?
So I did a cruise actually with my dad. It was like a music cruise he had been wanting to do for years. So flew to Florida, which was kind of interesting because as you talked about when you went to Cleveland, is leaving Portland Airport was a little different when, having layovers in places like Texas, the amount of people that were wearing masks and just like, it was kind of like a different experience for me having been here pretty much inside the house the last 2.5 years.
I found the same. When I went to Cleveland, I had to fly via Minneapolis because I refused to fly on a 737 MAX because it killed 346 people in 2 crashes. So I refused to fly on one of those. I could have flown direct on one of those with United. And then the other alternative was Spirit. But that was a night flight, and I would have been missed out on sleeping overnight because it's like a 4.5 hour flight direct. So I ended up spending 8 hours getting there via Minneapolis. And you're right, seeing the mask use at Los Angeles airport versus Minneapolis, where it was like half and half. And then when I got to Cleveland, no masks.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this country is amazing.
Yeah, we spent a night before getting on the ship in just outside of Orlando, and it was really, really different down in Florida than it is, compared to what I'm used to here.
What ship were you on?
We were on the Royal Caribbean Independence of the Seas. It was kind of like my dad. He brought me to a lot of concerts growing up, so this was like a rock cruise with all of his bands. So it was, a lot of older bands. But it was a good time. I was definitely one of the youngest people on the ship.
That happens. The Independence is a nice ship. My mum used to work on that ship quite a lot.
Oh, okay.
She used to sell jewelry on cruise ships. And they had a little, in the corridors they have like little stalls where they have like fairs, little like market stalls. And my mum used to do that until just before the pandemic, actually. And she used to go on the Independence quite a time. It's a big ship. It's a nice ship, but they are in some cases like floating old people's homes. What was the first concert your dad took you to then?
Oh, the first one. So when I was 5, I saw the Beach Boys. And the thing I actually remember just leaving, even though I was very small, because at the time, like, my favorite song was Kokomo.
Right.
And we missed it because we left early, and then we could hear them singing it as we walked out. Offensive. Yeah, but I've seen all my dad's bands, and any of them I didn't see, I think we covered on this cruise. So.
And so they were on the ship. They were performing on the ship.
Oh yeah. So it was.
Which type of artists were on the ship?
Oh, let's see. They had Styx, Deep Purple, Blue Oyster Cult. Jefferson Airplanes / Starship / whatever else. Don Felder of the Eagles. There was a whole bunch of people. It was a good time.
That sounds like a really good trip. I would have liked that.
Yeah.
I nearly went on a James Taylor cruise once.
Oh, that would be fun.
Right?
I like James Taylor.
Yeah, I nearly went on a James Taylor cruise, but I never did. Although I have seen him a couple of times. I also love concerts, and my stepfather worked in the concert business, and so when we also from a very young age were indoctrinated into rock music, because he was a big fan of the Eagles and that whole kind of American rock, soft rock.
Yeah.
But my first ever concert was Elton John.
He's one of the best.
One of the best, yeah.
Yeah.
And I did get to interview him a few years ago.
Oh, that's very cool.
And, that was kind of exciting. In fact, I found a video of I went to see Prince.
Oh wow!
Have you ever seen Prince live?
No, I wish I would have. It's definitely one of those ones that once they're gone, you kind of missed your opportunity.
I also went to see Queen. Twice.
That's another guy I was just when I said that. That's another one I was just thinking of. If you were lucky enough to see Freddie Mercury,
I saw Queen at Wembley, not the Live Aid concert, but the concert before Live Aid that they did, which was very similar set,
Mm-hmm.
And then again at Nebworth, which was like a big kind of outdoor festival. So I've seen Queen twice, which is why I love watching the Queen movie, because they really kind of encapsulate that feeling of being in the audience for a rock show like that.
Yeah, I thought that was captured really, really well.
Yeah, me too. That was, wasn't it Bryan Singer directed that, I think? But yeah, it was such a great film. I loved that. I got very stoned and went to see it with my brother in the cinema. And we loved it so much, because he also came to see Queen when we were kids. So that we loved it so much that we went and did exactly the same thing the next night.
Right. Just to relive it.
Genius, yeah. And so are you a musician as well?
I'm not a musician. I've always had a love of music, though. It's kind of what keeps me going. Like even in the mornings when I'm doing show prep, it's mostly just kind of zoning out and listening to music.
And are most of your favorites from years gone by, or is there any contemporary artists?
I like a little bit of everything. I listen to some jazz. I listen to I like a lot of blues music. I grew up, mostly in the 90s, so I'm a big fan of a lot of stuff in the 90s, whether it's hip hop or alternative rock. So yeah, I listen to a little bit of everything.
Sweet. Okay. It's very nice to meet you, Gliss. Thank you for everything today. You've been amazing.
You too.
We're gonna meet up with Hal in just a second. He'll pop in and tell us what's happening on his show. And just a reminder to you that I'm Anthony Davis. There's a couple of ways you can support the show. If you're watching right now and you can see the subscribe button down in the left side of your screen, please click it, because subscribing will let you know when we're going live, and we have some special plans coming up for those who are subscribed. Another way you can help out, no matter where you're watching or listening, is by leaving a review. So go to backchannel.tv and click Leave a Review. Your positive reviews help keep this show going. That's backchannel.tv and click Leave a Review. And you'll find me here every weekday, Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. Pacific. That's 12 o'clock Eastern. And then after me is your pal, Hal. He's here also Monday through Friday between 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock, 11, 12, 1, and 1 o'clock Pacific. Just working it all out in my head. And we'll catch up with him in just a second when he lands into the Backchannel studio. I wonder which side he'll show up in. You never know where someone's going to show up in this show. Just got to be prepared, just in case. I'm Anthony Davis. Thank you very much for joining me. Don't forget you can also leave a review, and that's very important. So if you have access to, Stacey reminds me, you can also do that on the what's it called? Oh, the Alexa skill. So if you have an Alexa skill set up, you can leave a review there. But you can also go to backchannel.tv and click on Leave a Review. Just a reminder on some of the things we've been discussing this show. We started out, if you want to go back and rewatch via YouTube, we were discussing Democrats grasping for a foothold on voter anger over abortion, and looking at the Trump-era protest energy after the Supreme Court's breached Roe opinion. Channeling that into November will not be easy for them. We discuss human rights and the abortion draft raising alarm over privacy and LGBTQ+ rights and other things. So that has had people fearing the conservative majority could use the same reasoning to target contraceptive rights or other rights. And then finally, we were discussing how companies blame us for climate change, and businesses shaping how we talk about climate change. And sometimes that can stop us from paying attention to their own actions themselves. So it's a very interesting interplay, I think. And a lot of companies claim to be environmentally progressive or environmentally friendly. And in fact, it's not always the case. And if you are somebody who works for a company, just think about their environmental credentials. I always think it's a good idea to kind of talk back, to be the one to make trouble, or as John Lewis used to say, to make good trouble, if that's in your interest. It's Thursday, May 5, 2022. This is Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis, and you have me each weekday, Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. Pacific to 11 o'clock Pacific. That's 12 o'clock Eastern to 2 o'clock Eastern. Where we discuss and spend a little bit of time looking at the news, looking through the morning papers. This morning we went through literally zigzagged around the entire country, looking at the morning newspapers, and with a particular attention on Oregon this morning, thanks to Gliss, who was producing the show today for the first time, which is always nice to have a guest and a guest and a guest. It's 11 minutes to 11 here on the West Coast. It's 11 minutes to 2 Eastern. 11, 12, 1, 2. Yeah, 2 o'clock Eastern. I'm Anthony Davis. This is Backchannel. Let's have a quick jump on your messages and see who's joining us. Isaac's in. Major Buffalo has joined us as well. Isaac, welcome back. Nice to see you. Yogi's here as well for the first time. Betsy is with us. Phoenix as well. Cheap Husky has joined the show. Kareem was with us a little earlier with Parkash, I should say. Vivacious Carp. Kearney was in, and Gnarly Falcon. Fluent Porcupine, and Johnny, and Ed, and Needed Condor, and Pervy, and Peaceful Rattlesnake. Fluent Porcupine, Orin. Waiting Mouse joined us as well a little bit earlier. And of course, Outrageous Armadillo had a little bit to say. We were joined by Trevor and Stacy and Eden and Trinity and Carrie. And so thanks to you. Let's see Hal, who is your pal and my pal. And he's on
Hello.
next. Hello, sir. Welcome.
How goes it?
Really good, actually. Yeah, I'm
There's a little
recovering
out of
from
control.
not COVID, and so I'm pleased that it's not COVID.
Oh, good. So you were feeling under the weather. You got tested, and it was not COVID.
All
good.
that, yeah. I had a PCR test because I tried a home test, and you just never know with the home test, right? So,
Yeah, you never know. You get a false positive, false negative.
right.
What
So
have
I
you?
went and did a PCR, and you have to wait the next morning to get the result, and that was negative. And I was like, why can't I seem to catch COVID? I just can't do it, Hal.
I've never tested positive. I
Right.
do think I had it
You're right.
right at the outset.
Maybe
in March
I did
2020.
Too. Yeah, when my daughter had it. I think we discussed this before. I think because my daughter had it so bad, I must have caught it because I was with her the whole time. Maybe I got some antibodies then as you did.
I mean, did you feel under the weather? Were you feeling the effects?
I think I felt a little under the weather. I just don't think it kind of got me, but maybe I did get some antibodies then. It would be interesting. I mean, you can have an antibody test now, can't you? I mean, there's so many.
Yes,
we
you
literally
can.
test ourselves till we're blue in the face.
Yeah, my wife recently just got an antibody test, and
How did she score?
middling. Not her antibodies weren't great, so she got boosted again. She's had 2 boosts.
That's interesting. I think I might go and get boosted before I travel. I'm going to England in a couple of weeks or 3-4 weeks. So
How much
maybe
family do you have in England?
Not that many. I have one brother there because I have 2 siblings here. So I have one brother left over there, and a mum and a stepdad and a stepmom.
Mum.
Mom. Mom's the word.
Yes. Very nice. When are you headed back?
1st of July, traveling on my son's 4th birthday.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, well, I've not been for like 2.5 years. And, because of the pandemia and various things, I don't really have a great desire to go, to be honest. But you have to introduce, the kids to grandparents and stuff
Yes,
like that.
grandparents and the rich culture of your home country.
Yeah, I think it's becoming a little diluted, like a lot of places, I do
Oh,
feel
sure.
that's, I love how Americans think British people are, this whole kind of tea drinking,
yes.
protocol and pomp and ceremony, and it really is like that. Have you been to London?
A couple times.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And did you love it, or were you like, get me?
Oh,
out
I
of
thought
here?
it was wonderful. I was there on work twice, so I didn't. You saw the video
the
I
Savile
did for
Row
the
thing,
Kingsman,
yeah,
yes.
which was brilliant.
An expensive town,
Yes.
to be sure.
Not as expensive as Los Angeles, though.
Oh, that's not what I might
Really?
have thought. Yeah, I thought London was particularly pricey.
What kind of places do you think were expensive? Like,
I mean,
like going into events or museums or stuff.
Yeah, but just from your pubs and restaurants to your hotels, etc. I think it might be the exchange rate.
Maybe it could be
hits
the exchange
you in the
rate because
purse.
it's going the other way. But in England, you can always eat out with a voucher, which is not something that really happens here.
Oh, I don't understand. What do you mean eat out with a voucher?
They have coupons for restaurants all the time in England. So if you want to go, like I would go to a restaurant, I would have like 2 pizzas for the price of 1 voucher. And even the fancy restaurants, the Savoy, these beautiful hotels, you could often find a coupon that enabled you to get like 3 courses and a glass of champagne for like £35 or £25 or £22 sometimes.
I'll have to. Next time I find myself in jolly old London town, I'll have to look for those vouchers.
Yeah, I think Open Table do it. I used to use Open Table to get coupons a lot, but I would always
Gotcha.
try to go to fancy places based on the coupon purchase.
I mean, would it serve me well if I said something like, Anthony Davis sent me?
No.
Oh.
Sadly
Okay.
not. That ship has sailed. You know, maybe a few years ago, if we were going in together and I had the voucher, then they'd be very pleased to see us.
The velvet ropes would open.
Yeah.
The crowd would part.
Yeah, if only. I did not lead much more of the solitary existence that I lead here, back in London. You know, I was.
Well, you were. Were you doing stand-up comedy in those days?
Yeah, I was, but I was on the radio most of the time, so I was like a creature of the night. You know, I'd be like floating around at night. What have we got to look forward to in the Hal Rudnick show today?
Oh, we'll take a look at the collapse of civilization as we're experiencing it, the Republican war on women, the Russian war on Ukraine, brief glimpses, and then we'll mix in some hijinks, nonsense, shenanigans.
Wonderful. I will be there whilst you're doing that. I'll be eating a bagel and drinking a coffee. So
Lovely.
I look forward to it. Thank you, Hal. All the best.
Always
to you,
a pleasure.
Sir. Take care. That's your pal Hal. He's here in just a second. I'm Anthony. I'll be back tomorrow morning from 9 o'clock Pacific. Have yourself a really good Thursday. Bye for now.